Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys have had a decent weekend so far, especially a decent weekend of watching playoff hockey. And a interesting series. It is entirely possible that we could see a couple really big upsets that I think could be really intriguing. But before I get into that and the topic that I wanted to talk about, if you are new to the channel and you love hockey in general, like I do, if you love talking about hockey jerseys, seeing jersey unboxings, seeing what kind of what jerseys I get, I know I love watching those. And anything hockey related, if you guys like that kind of stuff like I do, it'd be absolutely awesome if you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and also, don't if you feel like it, turn the little bell. You can click the little bell to turn on notifications anytime a new video is uploaded. So, just a little overview. The 65-win Boston Bruins have been pushed to a Game 7 by the Florida Panthers. Like, wow. And the defending champion Colorado Avalanche, they are going to a Game 7 against Seattle. So we got a couple big series that could go either way. And boy, if Boston gets bounced in the first round, oh boy. Could be interesting. But the topic I wanted to talk about today, or at least in this particular video, is we had during the COVID bubble, the NHL tried a thing where they did like a play-in type tournament. Now, I kind of wondered if something like that could work in the NHL, could actually work in the NHL. The only way I think this actually happens, though, is I think the NHL would have to expand. Otherwise, I don't think this doesn't happen, because you have 32 teams in the league right now, 16 make the playoffs. It's perfect. I think the only way you see a play-in type tournament is if the NHL expands to, say, 34 teams, or even go crazy with 36 teams. But I was seeing kind of how the NBA does theirs. Now their play-in tournament, it's actually like a play-in type tournament. It's like it's almost like a double elimination tournament. But the way they do it is they don't do it like in the way that I was thinking. Now, the play-in possible here that I was kind of thinking, like I said, this to me only works, or could only happen, if you go past 32 teams. So you could do it this way, with the top 3 teams in each division making the playoffs like you have now. But then the next 4, based on points, based on what their point total is, those 4 teams play a best of 3 to see who gets those last 2 spots. And you do it, and you still do it where the team, the lowest remaining seed, still would play the higher seed. And it would be, now the NBA does this a little differently. The NBA does theirs where they have 7 versus 8, and then 9 versus 10. And then whoever wins those games, they get in as the 7 seed, I think, whichever team wins. And then whoever loses goes to another game. And then whoever wins that game then takes the 8 seed, which kind of an interesting. I mean, I know when I was kind of watching it, I'm like, wait, why? Because I couldn't figure out. I was like, the Minnesota Timberwolves were in this, and I'm like, wait, they lost. How are they still in? And that's how I found out. Oh, they kind of do it that way. So it's like a double elimination style. Well, what I was thinking, what they could do, what the NHL could do, is like I said, you still have it where the lowest remaining seed plays the high seed. Like whichever team ends up in that 8th spot plays that team that has the most points in the conference. But I would do it 7 versus 10 and 8 versus 9. Best of 3. And whoever wins those 2 best of 3 series get in to those last 2 spots. Now, obviously, if number 10 beats number 7 2 out of 3, well, number 10 automatically moves into that 8th spot, or what they would call under the format now as the number 2 wild card. Where then it wouldn't matter whether it's 8 versus 9, they would go into that higher spot. But that only works if the 10 seed wins. So now, I mean, if the 7 seed wins, then the 7 seed is guaranteed to be in that 7th spot, or number 1 wild card spot, because then the 8 and 9 seeds would be the lowest remaining. Now, if you did it in the 1 versus 8 style format, obviously that might make it, some people might look at that and think that that's a little easier, because obviously you have the top 6 teams based on points, and then you take the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th in points, and you have those 4 teams play, like I said, 7 versus 8, or 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9, best of 3, and lowest remaining seed plays the number 1 seed. Now, like I said, the only way I think this works, the only way I think the NHL would entertain this is if there's expansion. At 32 teams, they're not doing this. This is something that the NHL, I don't think, is going to even think about doing, because they like the fact that right now you have 32 teams and you have half the league get in, half the teams out. 16 of 32 teams get in the playoffs. Now, if you think about it, though, you would still have 16 teams getting into the playoffs, because this is just a best 2 of 3 play-in tournament to decide who gets those last 2 spots. So it could still work out where they could do it with 32 teams, because you're still getting 16 teams in the playoffs. But again, if you do it like it is now with the division winners, the lowest remaining seed would be technically the number 2 wild card. Like I said, if the 10 seed beats the 7 seed in a best 2 of 3, that number 10 seed immediately plays that top team, because then it wouldn't matter who wins between 8 versus 9, because they're going to be the higher seed other than the 10th place team, because that 10th place team would then automatically get moved into that second wild card spot. So it's always still lowest remaining team. So even if the 7 seed and the 8 seed both win, well, that's how it goes. 7 seed is the number 1 wild card. The 8th team is the number 2 wild card. Same as in the 1 versus 8 format. If 7 and 8 win the best 2 of 3, 7 seed stays the 7th seed. 8th seed, stays the 8th seed. Now, of course, if you had 10 beat 7, well, in the 1 versus 8 format, that 10 seed becomes number 8. And then the winner of 8 versus 9 becomes number 7. So there's ways that some of these guys could potentially move up, but I mean, like number nine could move into number 8, or because the number 10 seed, if they win 2 out of 3, they move to number 8 regardless. So there's the potential to move up there anyway. But I was thinking that could be interesting, even if you have 32 teams, even if you still have 32 teams. You could still maybe do this because you're still getting, because that's technically not the playoffs. It's the play-in. You're determining who gets those last 2 spots to get into the playoffs. I think it could be interesting, but again, I don't think the NHL does it until they expand. Or if they expand. That's, I think, the only way this happens. But like I said, it is possible they could still do this with 32 teams. Because you've got those last 4, and they're going best 2 of 3 to determine those last 2 spots. You're still getting 16 teams in the playoffs. The other 2 teams would be out. Now, they could maybe do similar to what the NBA does, but I don't know, where it's just a one game, it's just a one game thing, and if you lose, if you win that game, depending on what one you are, what seed you are, you're automatically into that whatever seed that is. Because they do 7 versus 8, 9 versus 10. And then, the loser goes into the other spot, and then they would play for the 8th seed. It's kind of an interesting, it's weird. It's kind of an interesting way of trying to figure out how to get playoff spots. But I know the Minnesota Timberwolves, they were in that play-in tournament, and they got in that way. They were the number 8 seed, and they got their butts kicked, which is no surprise, but it's interesting. I do kind of wonder if this would work even in a 32-team league where you have where you're not, there's no other teams. Best 2 of 3. You're still getting 16 teams. I think it could be interesting. But yeah, I would not do it like the NBA does. I wouldn't do 7 versus 8, 9 versus 10. You do 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. And again, lowest remaining seed plays that high seed. And then, whichever one's left there then plays the other division winner. Now, of course, the 2 division winners are going to have the highest point totals. So obviously, the lowest remaining seed plays the division winner with the higher point total. I think it could be interesting. And I think it could be interesting if they did it either way. Do it in the divisional setup, where, of course, you have the top 3 teams in each division guaranteed to get in the playoffs. And then you take those last 4 and you base them by points, and that's how you match them up. You end up doing 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9. And then, that's how you figure out the last two playoff teams. And again, if you do it in the 1 versus 8 format, which I think some people might think is better, top 6 teams are guaranteed to get in. And then again, based on points, the bottom 4, 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9, lowest seed plays the highest seed. And then whoever comes out of the other one, they get the, whichever lowest seed wins. Like if 7 were to beat 10, but 9 beats 8. 9 moves into the 8th spot. 7 would stay the same. So, you've got the potential to move up there, but you're still having the lowest remaining seed, whichever one that is, whether it's 10 or 9, if one of those teams win, they move up into that 8th spot, and that's who they play. It could be an interesting thing, but again, I wouldn't. To me, I wouldn't do just single elimination or just one game. You do it best 2 out of 3, and I think that could be a lot of fun. And now, mind you, if it's best 2 out of 3, you're not going to have any travel here. The 7th seed, points-wise, and 8th seed points-wise, all 3 of those games are going to be held in their building. So 9 and 10 won't get any home games. They'll all be played in the higher seed building, in the higher seeds building. So, that could be, some people might not necessarily think that's real fair, but it's a best 2 out of 3. It's not best of 5, it's not best of 7, it's best of 3. So you do them all in one building. You do them all in the higher seeds building, and whoever wins those 2 series gets the last 2 spots. I think that's an interesting way. I think that could be an interesting way to do it. I think it could be a lot of fun, and you're still getting 16 teams in the playoffs. You're just having those bottom 4 teams fight it out to figure out which of the 2 gets those last spots. I think it could be interesting. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you think this would work? Do you think a play-in style tournament to determine the last 2 spots? Do you think that would be cool? A cool thing to see? Would you guys think it'd be fun to watch? Do you think the only way this happens is if the NHL expands? I'd love to know what you guys think. I think, as I damn near lose my balance, I think this could work even without expanding. I think this could work, and I think it could be a lot of fun. And you're giving 2 teams that normally would be out of the playoffs. You put them in a play-in tournament. You give them a chance to get in. You never know. That team that's 10th could possibly win and get in the playoffs. Love to know what you guys think about that. Again, it'd be awesome. You hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, tap the little bell to turn notifications on if you have not done that already. And yeah, I think this could be real interesting to maybe experiment with. You think the NHL does it at some point? Let me know what you guys think. Again, hit like and subscribe if you have not done that yet, and I will see you guys later.